A Thai model claims she's possessed by a flesh-eating spirit. NBC broadcasts the first ever on-air exorcism, and a UK man says a demon lives in his foot. Channel 4 airs his exorcism live. These are times people acted possessed on live TV. Back in 2016, a Thai model named Thipawan, who also goes by Pui, went on a morning talk show and claimed she'd been possessed by a spirit for over a year. She said it was a pop, which in Thai folklore is basically a ghost that feeds on human organs. As you can imagine, this makes for an awkward guest. At first she was pretty calm, just explaining how she picked up the spirit while on a trip to Rayong, but halfway through the interview, something changes. Her voice, her mannerisms. She starts talking like she's not the one in control anymore, and the hosts quickly realize that something's wrong. The pop has taken over. They start trying to reason with the spirit, telling it to stop threatening people. Then one of the hosts pulls out a Buddha pendant. As soon as he holds it up, Pui completely loses it. She screams, flails, and recoils like someone threw acid at her. They end up putting the pendant around her neck, and then it just stops, like nothing happened. Shame she didn't think to do that before spending the year with an angry demon in her body. The whole thing went viral in Thailand. It's definitely one of the wildest things ever broadcast on Thai TV. That I know of. I don't watch Thai TV. In 1971, NBC aired something that had never really been done before on TV, an exorcism. Most audiences back then didn't even know what an exorcism was. I mean, sure, exorcisms had been around for a very long time, but they hadn't seeped into pop culture the way they have now. This was still 2 years before The Exorcist even came out, so to say audiences were shocked by this would be an understatement. The 6-minute segment documented the experiences of Edwin and Marcia Becker, a couple living in Chicago who claimed their home was haunted. Reporter Carol Simpson led the piece, which opened with an interview where the Beckers described unexplained activity in the house.
Cabinet doors were closing, doors were opening, doors were closing.
This past week, they said they were awakened by the sound of a woman crying. It came from the dining room, but there was no one in the house but themselves.
I hated to think of what it was, Edwin went on to say during the interview. After the Catholic Church declined to help them, the Beckers contacted the independent spiritualist church in Chicago. The exorcism was performed by Reverend William Darrell Davis and Joseph DeLuise, a medium. Everyone in the house, including the news crew, was asked to wear crucifixes for protection. At one point, Reverend DeLuise entered a trance and claimed to channel the voice of a spirit, an old woman who spoke through him, saying something about a lock combination.
Remember, the combination. Why did it concern you? It's important to me. Why have you stayed here?
During the ritual, a strong gust of wind blew through the room, shaking the blinds, although that apparently happened off camera. The team also used a mirror, offered communion to the spirit, and spread blessed salt throughout the house. The broadcast ended with Simpson stating that the house had been quiet for several days since. In 2005, Channel 4 in the UK aired a show called The Exorcism, where they attempted a real exorcism on live television. A lot of viewers found it highly disturbing. The subject was a man named Colin, though, who claimed he was possessed by something that lived in his right foot. Apparently, this demonic foot spirit caused him to drive dangerously fast without being able to stop himself. That sounds like one of the worst excuses in court, but anyway, he tried everything else apparently, so Channel 4 decided to televise The Exorcism to see if it would help. The network made a big deal out of this, calling it a scientific experiment and even bringing in psychiatrists and, of course, church officials to answer phones afterward in case viewers got freaked out. They did. Over 4,000 people called in after the broadcast. It ended up being one of Channel 4's most called about shows. During the actual exorcism, Colin didn't exactly start levitating or vomiting pea soup, but he did look tense and disturbed. And then after a bunch of prayers, he suddenly said, "That was the most relaxed deliverance I've ever had." So take from that what you will. If anyone has more information on this airing though, like if you actually saw it live, please share your thoughts down in the comments. Back in the early 90s, ABC's 2020 aired a segment that freaked a lot of people out as well. It featured a teenage girl named Gina being exorcised by a group of Pentecostal ministers. It was filmed and broadcast nationwide in 1991 for millions to see. The footage is pretty distressing. Gina was clearly not in a good way, eyes rolling, voice growling, body convulsing. She screams, jerks violently, and starts shouting things in this deep raspy voice. According to the ministers, she was possessed by several entities, two of which were named Zion and Minga. Ministers surrounded her, prayed, and yelled for the entities to come out. Eventually, everything settles down and the demons are supposedly exorcised. Whether you believe in this or not, the footage is kinda disturbing. From what I can tell, this was not a staged segment. Even if it was just emotional overload or religious hysteria, it's sad watching a young girl go through something like this, all in front of cameras too. There's never been an update on Gina either. She ended up in psychiatric care soon after this segment aired. As for what she's up to now, if she's okay, we don't know. On August 19th, 1987, a man named Gary Stollman managed to get inside NBC's Burbank studio during the 4 p.m. news. At one point during the broadcast, he walked up behind reporter David Horowitz, pulled out a firearm, and forced him to read a bizarre statement live on air.
What is this? Let me see what it says.
Now, to say Gary Stollman was possessed here is a stretch, but he was in this eerily calm state considering the circumstances. He's almost robotic. It's very odd. And to the reporter's credit, he stayed pretty calm too, way more than I would have. He just started reading the paper, which was filled with wild claims about the CIA, mind control, and mental hospitals.
In 1981, by someone with connections at the CIA.
After the manifesto was read, Stollman just casually placed the firearm on the desk. Anchor John Beard quickly grabbed it, and security took Stollman into custody. Turns out, it wasn't even a real firearm. It was an unloaded BB. Very strange incident though. During a live call-in show on an Islamic TV channel, the hosts were doing a regular Q&A session when a woman called in saying she believed people had used black magic on her, and that a jinn, which is a type of supernatural being in Islamic belief, had possessed her. She said she'd been trying to fight it off with constant prayer, but it didn't seem to be working. At first she sounds calm, clearly distressed, but calm, and then it takes a turn. She starts making these weird animalistic noises, low growling, almost inhuman, and then a bit later, she just breaks into this loud manic laughter that comes out of nowhere. It's the kind of laughter that makes the hairs on your neck stand up. Now, whether this woman was actually possessed or not, who really knows? She was definitely dealing with something though, unless she was faking the whole thing, but it doesn't really matter. The call is freaky either way. David Blaine's 2001 interview on GMTV is incredibly strange, so much so that it's kinda hard to watch, and if you were a super sheltered person who was genuinely freaked out by magicians and you tuned into this interview, you'd probably think David Blaine was possessed by some dark force that allowed him to perform his insane stunts and tricks. So Blaine came on the show to promote one of his stunts, but instead of answering questions like a normal person, he mostly just sat there silently staring. He barely blinked, barely moved.
I'm sure you're not going to tell me. Indeed.
And when he did speak, it was in this deep, monotone kind of drawl, and his answers were short. The host tried everything to break through, asked him normal stuff, asked him weirder stuff, even straight up said at one point, "Is this just part of the show?" Blaine didn't flinch, finally lifted his hand and showed an eye drawn on his palm, explaining in a flat, muffled tone, it's protection from death.
Protection from death. Oh.
The interviewer later said it was one of the most awkward interviews of his career, and go figure. This clip is from a BBC documentary filmed in 1978, part of one of the most well-known paranormal cases ever, the Enfield poltergeist. A reporter named Rosalind Morris visited the Hodgson family in Enfield, London, and interviewed them multiple times. This clip shows Janet Hodgson, who was just a kid at the time, speaking in this deep, harsh voice she claimed belonged to a spirit named Bill.
No. Who's there? Doctor.
The Hodgsons said it started small. They'd hear knocking sounds, furniture would move around by itself, but then things started to get out of hand. Objects started flying across the room. Janet and her sister Margaret would get yanked out of bed. Janet started speaking in that raspy voice. Eventually, famed paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren showed up, and they backed the family up. saying the house was haunted by a poltergeist. Alright, one of the most uncomfortable and frustrating interviews I've ever seen is this Jim Carrey one. Oof. Now again, possessed in the traditional sense, no, but was he in some kind of state? Definitely. And it's hard to watch. It's very, very weird. So during a red carpet event at New York Fashion Week in 2017, Kat Sadler from E! News was trying to, just do her job. Have a normal chat with Jim Carrey, who seemed to just be going out of his way to make things uncomfortable. There's no meaning to any of this, he said. I wanted to find the most meaningless thing that I could come to and join, and here I am. Sadler tried to keep things on track, mentioning that the party was celebrating icons, and then he's like, I don't believe in icons, I don't believe in personalities, I believe that peace lies beyond personalities, beyond invention and disguise, beyond the red S you wear on your chest that makes bullets bounce off. And to really drive the existential dread home, he finishes off with, this world is not our world, we don't matter. Okay, it's so pretentious. It's like a teenager who just had their first philosophy class and suddenly thinks they're just so above it all. I know the truth, I see everything for what it really is. I don't know what Jim Carrey was going through at this point, but I think luckily he's become a bit more normal again, I think. I don't know. In 2012, a woman named Latoya Ammons in Gary, Indiana claimed her house was infested with demons. She said her kids were getting possessed. One kid apparently levitated, another walked backwards up a hospital wall. And it wasn't just her saying these things. Multiple people, like doctors, nurses, police officers, DCS workers, claimed they saw really weird things happen. The case ended up getting so much attention that it reached the local police and the church, and that's when a priest named Father Michael Magino performed multiple exorcisms, one of which was reportedly sanctioned by the Catholic Church itself. Zach Baggins from Ghost Adventures eventually bought the house and made a whole documentary about it called Demon House. He claimed the place was so dangerous, he had to demolish it. Well, with all that said, I've been your host James, and I'll catch you, yes you specifically, in the next video.